I'm Aliya and this is my husband Farouk Khan, and we decided to move to Malaysia in the mid-90s, around 1994, and move to Bangsar area and to get to know the area. It was new to us. We were driving around and we started noticing art galleries, and I had a great interest in art, which Farouk didn't, but we moved from Singapore. And we just started going into the galleries, and the art really was very interesting and exciting. The visual They resonated with us. There were different kind of works we saw, and very interestingly, we saw a lot of mixed media work. And Farouk, who was a Singaporean, not really interested in art. Of course, he loves music and everything. Music is his big passion, but started to follow me to the art shows and galleries, and it kind of, I think the visual of the Malaysian contemporary art really sparked something in him, and that's how we started.
So my name is Zena Khan, and as you mentioned, I'm curator of the AFK Collection, which is very much a family endeavor because I'm also the daughter of collectors Aliya and Farouk Khan. And I think curating the collection is such a privilege and hopefully a natural step because I grew up watching my parents assemble the collection, going on studio visits with them, listening to stories about the artists, watching this whole process firsthand, which I like to think has given me a really intimate knowledge, which I've further explored through my academic work. I have a degree in curating contemporary art from the Royal College of Art in London, and over 10, 12 years of writing and curating experience here in Malaysia. I've done projects in Pakistan, in the Middle East, in London. And yeah, so that's what I do. But my main focus is curating and writing about Malaysian contemporary art and exploring the explosion of art in the global south.
The AFK collection, it's a development of a collection, unlike many other collections, because we took the effort to understand the narrative of the Malaysian contemporary movement. We took the effort to understand the timeline of the Malaysian art movement, and we actually drew up some sort of a map on how the Malaysian art system contemporary system was developing, because there was very little written information or knowledge about it at that time. And we did a lot of research, we did a lot of engagement with underground curators at that time who were more involved with the thing. So the collection started, in fact, along the lines of a narrative of the Malaysian contemporary movement. So it wasn't so much as me and Aliya trying to buy works that we like, but having understood who were the important Malaysian artists, what were within the respective genres that existed at that time, within the timeline of the entire movement. We then set about buying artworks to fill up within the narrative. So it started on a basis of building up a collection based on the narrative of what was important and relevant within the Malaysian art movement. So there was a structure to the build-up of that collection. So today you actually have this repository of the first generation Malaysian artists who were engaged in developing conceptual art, in engaging mixed media, in engaging painting, in sculpture, installations, whatever the different genres that existed. So we collected across the board. Now what that ensured then, it ensured we did not become what I term gallery collectors. Most people collect along the lines of a gallery that they're familiar with, along the line of a group of friends that they are familiar with, and they restrict themselves to that. In our case, because we were following a broader narrative, it ensured that we would collect across the board. We would go to any gallery. We would go to every gallery. The artists who fit within the narrative where they were showing, we would then make a point to go to that gallery, whether we knew them, whether we were comfortable with them or otherwise. So the collection that today exists as a representation of the broader range of the Malaysian contemporary movement itself, which I think is very, very rare. It came about fruition through discussions at various levels, and also within the very strong development of art and culture within the UAE. The UAE today is in the process of building huge museums, large number of museums, and not just in the UAE, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia as well. And interestingly, in the case of UAE, they're showing interest in the development of the global south. I think with the development of the Guggenheim within the UAE itself, which is a huge museum, they have decided that engaging and relating to the global south is a good direction for Abu Dhabi to highlight the cultures of all this area and to use it to develop their tourism industry as well. And not many museums in the world highlight the global south.
Yes.
You know, we always focus on the Western development of art, or now more interesting, more recently within China, Japan and Korea, and to some extent to India. So they've taken on a new direction. And they've heard about the Aliya and Farouk Khan collection. And the AFK Malaysian Contemporary Collection is the first project within the Global South project. So it was done at the Cultural Foundation of Abu Dhabi, a very loved cultural center within Abu Dhabi itself. And I think that the whole thing has worked out very well. In fact, I think the show has exceeded expectations from everybody. We've had rave reviews of Malaysian art and Malaysian artists from the Society of Abu Dhabi. And you must understand that Abu Dhabi also caters to international curators in view of the number of museums and cultural events that they have. So it's been an interesting introduction of Malaysian contemporary art to the wider world. It's been a well-kept secret, and all of a sudden it's burst out into the scene. I would say that the reviews and comments to date has been well beyond our expectations. We are surprised at how successful the show has become.
It's actually the first major exhibition of Malaysian contemporary art at an international museum. So thinking about that was really important, because I always feel like it's good to start with the foundation. And the very first question I would have about an art movement that I was being introduced to is, what's it about? So when you're looking at Malaysian contemporary art, what's it about? You know, how did it start? What was the origins of the movement? And a really, really exciting thing about Malaysian art, which other people have said back to me, is it is this visual articulation of this really dynamic moment as society changed in the post-independence period, which is actually in fact due to political policy, social policy, educational policy, economic policy, shifts which lead to shifts in demographic, you know, the urbanization of once rural communities, changes in the way we use technology, changes to the landscape of the world around us. You know, my dad loves to tell me these stories about being in the 70s and driving up from Singapore to Penang with his brother and stopping to eat durian on the way, and it's like back roads, and now it's like all highways. I can't imagine having to do that drive. I don't think you could either.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted to give people that feeling of how they could understand and encapsulate.
Right.
So we decided to do it with a look at the history of Malaysian contemporary art and have a parallel narrative, which was the emergence of the contemporary Malaysian society. So through this exhibition, you're actually reading two histories: the art history, the social history, and a third story emerges, which is the value of collection building and patronage for emerging art movements. It was really wonderful. I loved, it's a big team of women I worked with who are all charming, passionate, knowledgeable, great leaders. They have so much ability. They can do the most difficult task and make it just, it's like cream. They do it so effortlessly. So I learned a lot.
Okay.
We have, I would like to say, such a great camaraderie between us. I think because of our shared love for art and culture and knowing about the world around us through that. So we've developed these really strong bonds, I think.
Nice.
And it's been amazing. And of course, to learn how museums do things, how foundations do things, you know, and to try and pick up as much as possible from them has been really important. So it's been a great learning curve and a really fun experience.
Installation process, well, we worked with the exhibition designer from the Cultural Foundation, and I have to say she was extremely talented designer, Maha, and she's an Emirati exhibition designer. So we worked with her on through Zoom. And she had all so we sent her, me and Zena, because we were working on all of that. So we sent her the sizes of the works, the images, and then she designed the space, because the space is actually a very big empty hall with very high ceiling. And they have 2 rooms at the back. So the 2 rooms can be used, it has 3 walls, but the inside the hall has to be redesigned every time they do an exhibition. So we had to then go through the process of, okay, how do we open the exhibition, what is the experience, and the curators come into that. But just visually, I like to, in the beginning, just to have an overview of the visual, because I'm able to see what a general public would be interested in seeing. So we worked on that with them, and I have to say the curators and the Cultural Foundation curators and the designers, extremely talented and worked very fast and did a fantastic job. And then Zena went to Abu Dhabi immediately after Hari Raya Puasa, and the installation took 1 week, and I'm sure you'll speak further to her on that. But when we arrived, they had everybody at the Cultural Foundation had already done a fantastic job. Then they had given, Zena and all of them, the curators, the exhibition
you have
designers.
to credit the success of the show to the ability of the staff and administration of the Cultural Foundation and the DCTC. I think the idea was then to show the development of the movement from its early phase through the current what exists. So there are various stages of development. So we highlighted the fact that people like Fauzan Omar and Yusuf Ghani were the very early forerunners of the movement, and from then it moved along to the likes of Zulkifli Yusuf. Then subsequently it moved around. What we call the very dominant power within the contemporary movement was the Matahati boys of Ahmad Fuad, Masdur Ramli, Ahmad Shukri, and Hamir Shoaib, who were present at this thing. And from then on, we decided also to show that there's a continuity within the art movement. Shushi Suleiman after the Matahati.
Yes.
Then we decided to show a bit of continuity within the art movement, that the development of the second generation appears to be fairly impressive as well. And we included some of the younger artists like Anika Taini Madian and Ali Nur Azmal. So the curating of the thing was through the process of the timeline of the development of the Malaysian contemporary society, and we took works representative of the changes within the civil society of Malaysia. Works that reflected those various periods and what was happening with it. So when you look at it, you have a timeline understanding of the historical development at a certain point in time. And I was happy to note that the audience had got that. That they could see from that how we had developed from point A to point B to point C, And they thought it was very interesting to have a collection that in fact could reflect that kind of a timeline as well.
So we were guided very much by the narrative that we wanted to present.
Okay.
And then when you're looking at that narrative, and this is also something that happens in collection building, you have to study. What I try not to do is to shoehorn works into an existing thought process. So we started with, we want to represent the history of Malaysian contemporary art, and we hope it will open up a reading of the emergence of the contemporary society. So how did the movement begin? That was a question we had to ask ourselves. And that very immediately led me, through existing research I have done, to Fauzan Omar, who I would say is the father of Malaysian contemporary art, with his first work, Layer series. And then of course Yusuf Ghani, who's very well known for the Sritari series he made in the 80s. And then from there we tracked down who were the iconic artists of the first generation.
Right.
And then you have to ask yourself questions to check why you're saying that, like what was the influence they had on the movement, how many kind of branches of knowledge and expertise did they engage in? Like a lot of them have also been professors at art universities, you know. Fawzan Omar has had so many important artists apprentice for him. These artists have shown at really important, Zulkifli Yusuf is very well represented. He's shown in many major exhibitions around the world. Venice Biennale twice, often shows in Singapore, is very well researched. So we picked up those artists who had a lot of influence.
Right.
And then we went through and found the iconic works that mark. So looking at the show as a whole, it becomes like a scaffolding of Malaysian contemporary art history, which the rest of the history can slot in into. Well, I really hope that they love the exhibition. I hope that they feel really, really moved by it. I hope they feel moved to learn something new. I hope that they feel excited to make connections between what they're seeing on the museum walls and their own experiences or other things that they've seen. I hope it opens up new branches of thinking. And one thing that I'm really hopeful for is that it inspires people to come to Malaysia, to see our beautiful country, to research more about this really dynamic art movement that we have.
Well, what I see is I see this as a opening of a door, opening of a window of opportunity. It's a question now whether can the Ministry of Tourism, can the institutions, the museums, develop this further? Because I think the opportunity exists. I think the acceptance of Malaysian art on a global scale exists as well. Now, you then need the infrastructure within your environment. You need very good curators who will know how to talk about Malaysian art. You will need your museums to have exhibitions where you then engage with international curators, international institutions, to invite them over to have a look at what it is that you have. You will need representatives within your art fraternity to go around to the international fairs to talk about Malaysian art. So how it will go, the potential of this entire thing, right now is private sector led. It's led by individuals like us who have this strong belief. It's a role normally undertaken by institutions. So there's a lot of sacrifice on our part doing what we do, financially and otherwise, but we enjoy it and we love it, so we don't consider it a sacrifice. But how big you want to make it? You see, like what Abu Dhabi has done, they've built the Guggenheim, which is 6 times the size of the National Gallery of Singapore. They have built the Louvre. They have redeveloped the Cultural Centre. They have developed 3 other major museums there. So it's the amount of resource that they've put in their belief that cultural tourism is becoming a major global factor. One of the best ways to develop yourself within the international environment is the development of your soft power. Now, whether in Malaysia people have this understanding, do the politicians have this understanding, do they have the knowledge of the importance of these things, that will determine the real growth. In the meantime, I take the attitude that we won't wait for anybody. We will just simply go ahead within our capacity to do whatever it is that needs to be done at the level that we can afford to.
Yeah.
And you know, as long as everybody plays a part, it's fine.
Yes.
Then through a process of time, it will grow. So whether it grows within 5 years or it goes in 20 years, it's fine. And you just keep making it grow all the time, you know?
I think just the desire to keep on trying to produce their best work. Because if you want to play in the international arena, you really have to produce your best work. And I think that the universities, universities in Malaysia, especially UiTM Shah Alam, has a major fine arts department, plus other universities, and they train the artists very well in the fundamentals. So it's then up to the artists, how much they practice their craft, how much they learn, how much they make an effort. Because to play, they are able, I think the Malaysian artists are able, have the ability to play on the international arena, on the world stage. They just have to keep on doing it.
Well, it's going to be a major motivation for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, that passion of theirs, which can provide income for them, provide a lifestyle for them on the local front, now there is a realization for them that they can also succeed on the international front. Now, how wonderful is that? that they can be shown in the Dubai Art Fair, they can be shown in the various Basel art fairs around the world. So it is a great way to internationalize things within Malaysia. And this young generation of artists should be very appreciative of the efforts put in by all the people before them, you know, that they can now walk into this thing, you know, and good luck to them, and I'm happy for them, you know.
I really hope that we have more, you know, I'm a writer and curator, so this is maybe a very personal lens. I think that we need more publishing. I would hope that we have a really great kind of publishing sector that kind of really flourishes. I think that we need more focus and attention to the history of the arts. And that can be done in really fun and exciting ways as well. I'd love to see, you know, I love how much Malaysians love to engage in art. I think that's great, and we have a lot of talks. Hopefully that will continue to grow.
Yeah.
And to just grow and expand and have more places we can look at art and more ways to read about art. I think that that's what I hope happens. And I'm seeing that happening.
Right.
And of course, it'd be great if we could do more amazing international shows. You know?
All right.